Hi, Hillary Raven Porter, Sacred Starseed Healing. Hello. This is part two to the previous video. The last video was in regards to lessons and insights and just like reminders that came through the eclipse of like this is how to take care of yourself. This is the boundaries to put in. This are some of the tools you can use as you're doing this soul work, this shadow work, this soul journey, this getting back to your original source code, the original star seed that is you, your original codex, blueprint, intention for being here now, right? And today, part two, is all about the fact that it's not all love and light. No, wait. It is love and light, and sometimes it sucks. Sometimes you're like, why did I buy a ticket for this ride? I want to get off. This is not fun. I am not enjoying myself. Is it worth it? And these are things that we're starting to hear more and more of people being on the up and up about, like, this journey is not all like, oh, it was so peaceful and ease all the way. No, it's not. 100% it is not. Is it worth it? I think so. And without getting into a huge thing about my backstory, I've definitely had the challenges, and a lot of them, and still do. And a lot of those moments of like, this sucks. And I still wouldn't change it. I was just having some time on Wavy before this video. It's our multi-wave mat. And thinking about, like, would I actually have given up anything that has happened? No. And that's with the caveat too. I'm not going to be like, oh, but I loved every minute of it. I did not love every minute of it. I do not love every minute of it. Even now, some of the things that come up, I'm like, this isn't fun. I don't love this. It's true, right? So whenever people say, I want that experience and I want to go bam, and I want to go from zero, from this dense, and I want to have that awakening. I want that massive Kundalini experience of just, I caution against that. Mine was a blast open, sort of. Again, big long backstory. But the reminder to, like, hey, you need to change your path back. Was this blast open. And to integrate when it's so intense is a challenge. Because we still have to function in this 3D realm. We still have to be here now, while we're also in there, and there. Those parallel spaces that we reside in as our vibration becomes finer and finer and finer. So, we're going to talk about some of those things today. We're going to talk about some of those parts that suck. Some of those parts that we're like, oh my goodness, this is hard. This is a challenge. And we're going to talk a little bit about the why, and also the some of the things you can do, some quick and easy tools. I say easy, but you know, sometimes when we're in it, we're like, what is that tool that I have again? So I highly recommend, this is something I suggest to a lot of people, is making a list of your tools, right? Quick little list. It can be helpful to put what the tool is for and how to use the tool, not just the tool. So for example, if you're like, skullcap tea, but then when you're in the moment, you look at it, you're like, skullcap tea, but is that the one that I need right now? So just putting little brief notes about you use it when you're super ultra open and sensitive, aware, right? When everything's super amplified, it helps you integrate, it helps cool the nervous system. So when you're feeling jittery, or your digestion's, going a little sideways, it can help just kind of soothe everything back in. So putting that, and have that list, so that when you're in that moment of everything is so much right now, there's so much information or so much happening with me, all you have to remember is go to the list. go to the list. Go to the list. You don't have to try to go through your file of facts because we can be in this state of overwhelm, everything's so much, and then we're trying to use our executive functioning, you know, that lovely little aspect when we're driving and we get to the end of this long drive and we're like, I'm exhausted, but I didn't do anything. It's because you're using your executive functioning in your brain. Well, sometimes we're like, everything's so much, like, don't ask me another why, what, whatever. Like, how do I even? Go to your list, okay? So these challenges, these moments that we are like, what, why, I don't want to anymore. I want to get off the ride. Can be the most intense, are the most intense when we make big jumps, right? So there's this path that we take. You'll have heard me talk about this before. The steps, up and in, up and in. So up is like you're making this transition to a finer frequency, right? These are the points where you're like learning. So think about when you were a kid, when you were a kid, then you're like, oh, now I'm learning to talk, now I'm learning to walk. And they're huge leaps. And then all of a sudden you're like, the beginning you're like wobbling on your feet. And then all of a sudden you're just running, right? Learning phases. And then there's integration. So when we're in the lower densities, and moving upwards, this is kind of what happens. It's like long transitions. And then integrations can be short or long, but often we're like, oh, here's the integration. And then we're like, oh. And eventually, as we are moving up and up and up, the integration takes less time. Yeah. But that step could still, you could be like, oh, I only really need to go that far. And then the integration, however long the integration is, depending on how intense it is. This little like step up could be like, and you're just like, this is crazy. This is so intense, right? You can feel intense from the bottom as well as you're moving up. Okay. Multiple things. So the takeaway from that is we have these steps. Learning, integration. And if it's a quick learning, all like, because maybe you did a whole bunch of things. Maybe you did a whole bunch of healing sessions. There was an eclipse, right? Maybe you did this whole bunch of reading. Maybe all these transmissions and downloads came through. Maybe it was just the moment and just the time when you were supposed to have this space, right? And then you're like, where am I? What's going on? Those are the moments when you're like, this is so intense. Even it's kind of like when you go on an airplane and maybe for the first time and you go up and you're like, oh yeah, there's a whoa, and you can feel that like shift in your body as it's pulled back and the dynamic of, oh, we're in a different sphere. We are in a different floating space. The air pressure is different. Everything. It's kind of like that as well. Except we're like a rocket ship, right? Up. And you see those images and you're just like, oh, that's what it kind of feels like. My whole being, in my head, in my heart, and everything right now, right? So let's talk about some of those things that we're just like, can I get off now? Yeah. Sleep. So I talked about this in the last one and just like how it's like nourish yourself, allow yourself that space to sleep and all this other stuff. The part that can suck about sleep, there's ways that it can be impacted. There's more, I'm sure. These are the two key ways that especially were pointed over the last week. One, being unable to sleep, especially at night. And then in the day, you're just like, all you want to do is sleep. Yeah. You're just like, during the day, you're tired, but you're like, I can't sleep. If I could just have a nap, if I could just rest, it would be amazing. And then nighttime comes and you're like, oh, I'm wide awake. Great. Yes. So good. Can be a couple of things. The heat going through the body. Remember we talked in the last video about our nervous systems when we're running so much current. That causes a lot of heat. It can also eat up a lot of our yin, watery, nourishing, right? Cozy spaces in our body. That's also why lots of fluids are important. Staying hydrated. So important, right? So when our yin is deficient, so let's say it's being burned up because of all this current, so the yin's just being eaten up. That's the fluids, that's the nourishment, that's the receptive state, all of those things. are being dried up. Well, when we become yin deficient at night, so yin is relaxing and stuff like that. So then in the evening, all of a sudden, we're like, bing, because we've got this like heat coming in because we don't have enough cooling. Our yin coolant is deficient. And so we have this heating up and then we can't sleep, right? We're wired, but we're exhausted. Wired, but tired. Yeah. Also at night, this is activation time. This is super activation time. Takes me back to being a teenager, and you're like, I can't sleep at night. That's when all my emotional poetry comes out, and I just want to listen to angsty music and whatever, right? I was a poetry lover, and definitely that's when my room got switched around a lot, was at night. My mom would be like, what are you doing? It's like midnight. My room is getting reorganized. But also, this is activation time because the world has settled. There's less noise. There's less static. So more can come through. And often, on an individual basis, that's collectively, but often on an individual basis, yes, the static is less, but we also have less like to do, right? Less like I have to go to work, I have to do this, and distraction. So if we turn off our electronics and we're awake at night, and we're not just tuning out to the electronics. Listen, see what comes through. There's a massive messaging here. And the sleep during the day, if you can honor that, and I'm not just talking about like, oh, I need a little nap. You're like, I need to sleep, like full on sleep, right? Nighttime can also be filled up at with the dream space, which impacts because you're not really dreaming, you're astral traveling. You're astraling. I was going to say you're astraling. And you're here, 3D realm, you close your eyes, and then you're in the next space traveling, doing. So your body is sleeping, but you're not. You're out there doing things. Right? Yeah, so that can suck because then you wake up and you're like, oh, I don't feel like I slept. I mean, part of the joke in our house is my partner's like, I love your light codes at night because I will be speaking light language just pouring. I'll wake myself up going, oh, that's what's happening. I'm like, no wonder I don't feel rested because all this work is happening and I'm speaking light codes, which is great. I'm healing my body. I'm doing work on the other side. I'm doing all this other stuff. But at the same time, our physical being still needs rest. Yeah. So what can we do? So all of these things, they're things that happen. And to stuff it, or to be like, nope, none of them are going to happen. So I could be like, here's all these herbs to just like force yourself to sleep. That doesn't help the transition. It actually hinders it. Yeah. It makes it take longer for that integration, for that learning process, because there is a process. But we still have to live in this 3D realm. So a couple things you can ask. One, if you know, so we talked about it in the other one, like set yourself time for the integration. So if you know I'm going to have a big weekend or there's this big day or I'm going to this amazing sound healing thing or like all these things, right? You're like, this is happening. Plan. Book time after to have this space if this is possible for you. Yeah. If it's immediate after, so if you're like, oh, I have to work the next day and you can't really book it off, book time after you're off work. And really allow yourself. Don't fill it with other things. Don't be like, well, I have downtime and I'm gonna fill it with watching Netflix or whatever, right? I'm gonna go with friends. No, take that time to integrate. It is designated non-negotiable time to integrate your being. If not, again, it takes longer and longer and longer. And it impacts you further and further and further. You're like, why is this impacting me so much? Because you didn't give yourself that time to integrate. Okay. The other one is you can ask for rest. And ask for no work. Okay? What does that mean? That means saying, hey, guides. Hey, astral beings. Hey, divine. I need a night of rest or I can't do the work. I need a night of rest or I can't do the work. Because they, akosuta isito shtai, live completely differently to us. They may have had experiences here and stuff like that. And then, go back up But they forget, they're like, oh yeah, that's right, there's limitations on the human body. I've had periods where they're like, oh no, it's fine, we'll just keep working on you. You just go to sleep, we'll work, we'll do all these things, you'll help us with all these things, and then you wake up and you do this. And I was knackered. I was exhausted. I was non-functional. And then a whole bunch of physical things started kicking in because my body was like, I can't keep doing this. So literally just saying, hey, okay, guys, I need tonight. So if you're noticing this going on for a long period of time, now this is not me saying, oh, you had this really powerful night and it's like one night of like things are a little off, right, with your sleep, because you still need to integrate, and that's part of it. You still need to go through the process, and that's part of it. But if this is like super impacting you, just say like, guys, no thanks. Like a month ago, I said to my guides, I was like, I need some sleep. I need some sleep. I know you work on me when I'm sleeping. I know you do some healing when I'm sleeping, but I need some sleep. And so they gave me like 3 weeks. It was great. Another key thing when you ask for that sleep though is you can tell them, you can say, okay, you know what? How about, so if this is a regular occurrence, you say, how about, or not how about, but I will Saturday night. So pick a night that works for you and be like, Saturday nights are the nights that I am here dedicated to you. And then I have Sundays to really integrate and do the work that day. And be like, hey, here we go. This is a working relationship. Here we go. This is what I can offer. So that I can still show up for me here, 3D, sato kasinama, and for me, 5D, ako senema ochitai, and the collective apasuto shokumaiti. Okay? I encourage you not to do the like, yeah, but it's all for the greater good, and burning yourself out for it. What good are you if you burnt yourself out? You burnt bright, brilliant, strong, and true, and then you fizzled out. It's like the birthday thingy where it's like you light it and it goes done. No, we want to keep going. You can burn bright and strong and true and keep going. Continue to do the work. But that's where all these things come into play. Physical, 5D, science to spirit, or 3D to our 5D, and the interlock, right? The interlink. Okay. Next one. Big one. Really big one. They're all impactful. Your digestion. It just goes sideways. And you're like, but I want to eat. And then you eat, and then you're like, oh God. And it just feels horrible. Right? You're just like, no, I want to eat this thing, but I can't eat this thing. Or I want to ingest what I did before, but I can't ingest what I did before. So your digestion is not just taking in food nourishment and separating the nutrients from the waste. It's not all that it is. It is also digesting the experience. It is a huge part of the nervous system. Huge, 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 right? And apitishka, when it gets porous, right? We've probably all heard of this leaky gut. The like layers like separate, and then like chunks of particles that aren't supposed to go through are all of a sudden in your body, and you're like, that doesn't feel good. But if we have porous digestion, we're letting things through. Like, we're not being discerning. We are letting things through energetically in our lives, on the physical realm, all over the place. That we are like, no, I don't want that. But we're letting it in. Or we don't know that we don't want it. But we're not being discerning because we're not being conscious. And we're not allowing ourselves to integrate, to digest the experience, moving from one to another to another. A good example of this is the consuming of information of like, oh no, I'm going to learn about this and 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 this. It's the same as binge eating. But you're binge consuming ideas, knowledge, light codes, vibration. You're like, yeah, so I went to this thing on Friday, and then on Saturday I went to this thing, and Sunday I went to this thing, and then Monday I went to this thing, and then I just kept on. But your body gets all like, I don't know what to do with all this, right? It's like saying, I took all my vitamins because they're all good for me. I took all these supplements because they're all supposed to be good for me. But then your body goes, what's the message? You're giving me so many things for messages. I don't know which one you want me to follow. Too many messages I can't integrate. I cannot digest what you're telling me. So consume something. Read that book. Do the activities, learn the information, give it time to digest, experience that vibrational medicine. All right. If it's a weekend thing and it's all like in the same theme and it's like this lovely little package, you're like, okay, this is all about integrating and working together. That's one of the things I do with my soul bathing immersives. I love it because you're just bathing in your soul for 3 days, one full day, but it's all in the same train and it has that, it's a container, right? So if you're like, I went on this retreat for a week and it's that container. But if you're like, oh, I took from this and then I here there and then I blah, blah, and I went over here. No, time to digest. So your digestion goes for a loop. What does that look like? That looks like stomach upset, gas, bloating, heartburn, pain, hemorrhoids, all these things, right? Basically inflammation is what's going on. Again, nervous system overheated, right? Sideways, sluggish digestion. You're like, I'm not digesting. You put food in, you're like, ugh, how come I feel full for hours, right? You could have these cravings. Yeah. So what do? Go for the easy to digest items. Easy to digest items, we're looking for things. So also the easy to digest items tend to be finer frequency. So if you are this frequency up here and then you go and you eat all this dense food, heavy, dense food, we're also talking like further away from its original state food, right? Like super processed food, fast food, stuff like that. Also some meats, right, can be very, very heavy. Anything that when you, after you eat, you're like, oh, and you feel very heavy, dense foods, right? You can have clean, dense foods, and then there's dense foods that are like the not clean, dense foods. The vibration is so different that when you eat it, it feels discordant in your body because your body's like, yeah, but I don't like, do you see what I mean? Dense, like, and it just feels odd. It's like, it's like watching a show and you're like, I don't feel like watching this. Like it's totally out of my mindset. Or you enter a gathering of people and you're just like, oh, this vibration's way off. Like let's say you enter and they're all listening to heavy metal, whatever. And you're like, I'm actually more into my like folk music right now. The vibration doesn't match. It's not good or bad. It just doesn't match. So it feels discordant. Same thing with your digestion when you put food in. That's like, it's discordant. So the finer vibrational foods, so and easy to digest foods. So soups, smoothies, whole foods, steamed veggies, right? Stuff like that. Almonds. Because one of the things that comes is you're like, I need something to like center and kind of ground out a little bit. So almonds, ideal if you can do almonds. They connect the heaven and the earth. The outside is all about the earth. It's bitter. It's the bitter part. So it draws you down. Bitter grounds us out. Bitters, dandelions, love them. They're here right now. They're going to ground us out. So almonds, that part. And then the inside's that white, smooth, nourishing. So it's connecting everything. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, a lovely plant friend that is great for this, lemon balm. Lemon balm is specific if you're feeling the emotions and the everything in the nervous system of your digestion, of your stomach. It's cooling. I mean, it's one of the best herbs if you're having heat stroke. So it's super cooling. So when you have all that current going through you, if you have low thyroid, I caution you against using this as it can make you go down a little bit more. Another really good one is chamomile, mother of the gut. Helps the digestion, heals that digestion. Yeah, it's healing, it's soothing, it's a slight bitter, grounding. Right? It could be slightly sweet. It's not a flavor for everyone. You can sweeten it with a little bit of honey if you like. If you have an allergy to asteraceae, no thanks, I'm good. Stay away from this guy. Okay, a few more. Number 3, your balance. Oh yeah. We're talking physical balance, actual physical balance. You stand up and you're like, whoa, and then whoa, you're kind of like, what is happening? And your emotional balance. Woo! Tears, anger, frustration, happiness, like, the gambit. balance. Yeah. So physical balance, you're getting used to walking in this new reality. This new layer of the veil that you have now accessed. Think about when you were a kid, you're learning to walk, or you see little kidlets trying to learning to walk, and they're just like, doo, 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 doo. Oh, ha, 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 right? And land on their butt, knock into things, because they're like, this is, because they literally went from crawling, doo, 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 crawling, to all of a sudden standing up. Well, that's like, I don't know, like another 2 feet off the ground. You're like, whoa, this is a different perspective. You're in a new perspective. You're in a different perspective. Every time you go up a level of the veil, you are in a new perspective. New perspective. And you're like, whoa, I didn't realize how those trees shine. I didn't realize the light codes coming off of them. Like, you will start seeing things and things will shift and you'll just be like, oh, hello, which also distorts a bit of your physical. You're like, okay, I'm still here physically. Right? Your eyes are working differently. You're seeing into other layers. Beautiful. Takes some getting used to. Yeah. Okay, for this guy, reminding yourself that you're safe, surrounding yourself in sound, and whatever supports you can. This one is they're herbs, more of combos of plant matter. Lavender is really great. Connect the earth to the sky, so it's really bringing that stuff back into center. Energy work, lean into your healers and your supports in that way, because that'll just continue to help coalesce that vibration so that you're like, oh yeah, that's what this is. And time, nature, we've talked about nature will help with that rebalancing, because you can be in it and you know that sensation. You go out and you're just like, well, I feel in the flow, and everything, I don't want to say distorted, but it shifts, right? And you're like, whoa, what's going on? Normally, even before you start making these jumps, these shifts, these vibrational up levels, right? These quantum steps. So it's natural to feel those states amongst the trees because they automatically shift us. And so go to them. Hug them. Just be within them. Yeah. Emotionally, emotional balance. Up, down, left, right, center. Because you're processing all this information coming in. And then you're like, oh, my emotions. Right? Don't stem the flow. And also, try not to take it out on people around you. While also telling them and being vulnerable and open with, this is what I'm experiencing right now. I might have to excuse myself. And if you have to excuse yourself, be like, I'll be back in a sec. And go, let the emotion do its thing. You can also do this around people, but again, it's not taking it out on that person. Or recognizing if you're like, oh, sorry about that. Yep, this is what's happening right now. See it, I see it. Because also your patterns come up. As you're going up the finer vibration, the denser vibrational stuff, the patterns come out to let them bubble up. Safe space. This is also where we really learn about the people around us and the safe space that we've created with the people around us. I don't know how many times I've been like, oh, Dare, not you, me. But then being like, but it's coming out. Is it okay? And then they just hold the space. And they're just like, yeah, go for it. And they're not taking it personally. They're just like, cool, here it comes. And then it comes out and then you're like, oh, that's done. Yeah, so there's a difference between taking it out on that person and being allowed to express in that space with an understanding. Okay? Rose. Oh, our lovely friend Rose. All the heart, the yin, the balance. Just remembering to have compassion for what's going on within you. This one we've dubbed the 5D 3D hangover. This occurred, so this is number 4. And this is this was really apparent to Derek and I this past weekend. And we've had it before where we've done work, you know, and we're like, oh, that was a big upshift. That was like quantum steps. Like when I say quantum steps, I mean like I stepped from here on Vancouver Island, all of a sudden my one foot's on the moon, just like quantum step, you know, just huge. And we've gone out and been like, oh, everything's different out here. The 3D feels even more like removed from where we reside normally. We love the cocoon space of our space. It's true. And this past weekend, so in the first video I explained a little bit about, we had some power, well, I mean, it was the eclipse in Taurus, which is the shakedown, getting ready for the eclipse on the 14th with Scorpio. Lots of Pluto, lots of peeling back the layers. There was this like magical, intense sound healing that we hosted with grid work and my light codes, and it was powerful. And then a dual reiki, like we just had all these things that were just like amplify, amplify, amplify. And when we went out on Sunday, we were like, this is the biggest 5D, 3D hangover we've ever had. Or that I remember in a long time. Maybe I've had other ones, but this one was like, it has been a while. This has been quite a while since I've felt this. So this again, from what I was talking about before, in regards to like food, where you're like, this was the vibration before, and this is the vibration you're at now. And again, this does not mean better than. Okay? I mean, we hear that all the time. Just a reminder. This is not better than, it's just different. Different. And so when it becomes that much of a shift, you see things more clearly. You see truth in things even clearer than you did before. You see things that you were like, I did not know, right? And it feels discordant in your body, because like this one could be like doing this and you're like this, and this one's doing this, and it's just so different that you're just like, I can't. You're like, it does not feel good. It does not feel nourishing. We still have to live in our 3D world. We still do. Right? Different levels. We can make choices where we live and stuff like that, but there's still, especially here where we are, in North America, and it's then making choices of how we go about in the 3D world, where we go about in the 3D world, what we support, what we don't. Do we really need to go out, or is it more of a want? Which will lead into the next one. Right? So here we go. This is the challenge. So that was the challenge, to be in society and recognizing how your reality is shifting and the things that are shifting for you that are falling away. And that goes back to the other things, the nourishment, and realizing it's like, okay, feed myself this way, do these types of things, like that support that new vibration. Yeah. Having to go out. So we have a couple of things that we use, that I use as well. One of them is we have these 5D Bioshields, because part of what's out there is that EMF, and we have cocooned our space against the EMF as best as we can. So 5G Bioshield is the one that we have. There's lots of different ones out there that help. And so we have those when we go out. So that helps buffer us in that space. Because like cell phones and all other stuff, I mean, picking where you go, unfortunately, we had to go to the mall. We had to pick up something that was the only place we could find what we needed, unfortunately. And the smells and all of this stuff. So we were like, in, out, let's do what we have to do, and then go home, really, right? Buffering yourself with nature. So if you're like, okay, I have to go do these things, like I have to go grocery shopping. If you can order and have stuff delivered, awesome. Sometimes it's not that simple. Go do your thing, come back, have some nature time, use the tools that you have, use the sound, right? Get back into that space. And don't be like, okay, I'm going to spend the full day doing all the 3D stuff so that I can burn you out. Do it in bits and pieces. Yeah. The other one is I use Devil's Club. I have a Devil's Club necklace that I wear. Devil's Club, oh my goodness. He's like this wildling beast. He's right, and he circles you, and he helps to protect you, to make sure that nothing behind you, nothing in front of you, nothing beside you can get into you, can get at you. So protection. So any of those protective things. Shanghai is another one. We have Shanghai necklaces that we wear, which can be helpful to keep because as you're going up, yes, you keep your vibrational high, but this is as you're learning to keep in this field we need the tools to help us. And even on days when we're like, that was just intense. So maybe you didn't have this huge upshift, but it's a day of expansion and opening, and it's a power day. And you're just like, okay, everything's just really there. And as a female body, if you have your moon cycle, you can notice you're way more receptive on those days. You're like, okay, I make choices now. But so sometimes we need these tools to help us keep that current. Yeah, to integrate that current. Okay. Oh, yeah. Nature, nature, nature. That's what I wrote for this one. 5D, 3D hangover. We were just like, you literally feel hungover. You go out, you're like, I swear people thought Derek and I were drunk. Like I was like, I need to lean on you. It's like looking around. You could tell I was tired because I had the lack of sleep the night before, but just everything, the words that come out, you're just like, oh yeah, the filter. You're like, it's discordant. 100%. Okay, last one. Senses. Your senses are through the roof. Everything from you don't even want your clothes touching your skin because everything just feels like you can feel every single point. I'm not going to say on fire. It can feel like burning sometimes, but you're just like, well, that's the nervous system. But it's just like, ooh, Mercury. I'm just going to write that down so I don't forget. You could feel every little point. So when your clothes move and shift on your body in any capacity, you're just like, oh, I feel every single thing. Every single thing. And it's just like, your nervous system is just like, oh, it's too much. Like it's message, and you're just like, I can't process these messages. Yeah. The sound, everything is so loud. You can hear everything. Like I can hear the humming of all the electronics, like the baseboard heater, the light. You know, you can hear all the little things. You can even hear the trees outside. Like you hear it all. Loud noises are too much. You know, tinny noises, maybe you like a ting and you're just like, oh, it's so much, right? Your sight, you're just like, okay, everything is so bright. Even if it's cloudy, you can see all the fine little edges of everything. So these are all amazing things because you're picking up all this information. But if it's too much information at that moment, if it's an abundance that you're like, this is too much of an abundance, sometimes we need to buffer them. Not turn them off. Again, these are gifts, but we need to be able to integrate. We need to be able to function. So some of the tools here, I'm going to go back. Be in the spaces where you feel nourished. Nature. I have mentioned that a couple of times. Nature, nature, nature. We have this grandfather tree. I can go like that because he's right there. We have this grandfather tree and that medicine. So even just sitting on our balcony and being like, hi, grandfather tree. How's it going? And just listening. So I'm still in the city, but it's amongst nature. Yeah, listening to birds, listening to water, being somewhere where you can listen to the babbling brook, right? Water, the ocean, those kinds of things. Being in spaces that are buffered to where you need to be. Sound. Okay, so I used to wear earplugs sometimes because that's the only way, but then you can't hear everything. So I got these new things. This is not a promotion. I'm not being paid for this, but I wanted to share with you. These are things that I recently got. So these are, you see that? So kind of an earplug, but not an earplug. So these are called Loop, Loop. I do love them. There's some things with them too. I mean, they're not perfect. So one, they're affordable. They go in your ear, and there's this little like ring here that can come out, which then allows more sound to go in. And what it does is it just brings the sound levels down, so you can still hear things. I mean, I still want to hear my kid when he's like, "Mama," you know, like, I want to hang out, and not have it completely blocked off. Or if you're going out, right? Super helpful. It just buffers the sound. It brings it down some decibels. So you're still within the world, but it's buffering it, and that's okay. Challenges, eat with them. You can hear yourself chewing. I mean, it is a plug in your ear. It's just allowing some sound through. There are filters and stuff. You can find out more about them on their website. Wind. That's the other thing I've noticed. If I've gone out and there's wind, it can do that, like, you know, when you're wearing headphones and you can hear the wind a little bit. But all in all, these have saved me more times than not. Yeah. Even just being in the kitchen this morning. And I'm still processing integrating the weekend. And there's like just doing the regular dishes. And, you know, Derek's putting away the dishes. And I'm just like, I cannot do this. Which then makes everything else amplified and jacked up because you're trying to process that excess here, which then gives you less energy to manage, process, buffer, integrate the other senses. Because let's say you have a level 10 energy and all of a sudden you're using 5 to process that loudness. That gives you less for the rest, the emotional balance, all of that stuff, right? Clothes, choosing the clothes. So if your skin is that it's getting all that sensitive stuff, natural fibers. There's a reason why we see all these like flowy clothes and stuff like that in the spiritual realms. It's not only because some of it's cliquey and they're trying to sell an image, but you can get so many awesome clothes now in natural fibers, bamboo, cottons. Linen is iffy because of the texture when you're in this amplified state, but it still feels, it brings in the different vibration into your body, right? The negative ions that we actually want. For your eyes, straight out glasses, sunglasses, buffered glasses. Some people like blue tint, some people like red tint, some people just like sunglasses. Use them. There's no shame in any of this stuff. Taste, well, that just depends on where your tastes are at that time. And just know, be like, oh, that's so much. I can't do that right now. Then don't do it. Right? And this is a big one. Allow yourself to grieve. You're changing. You're shifting. It's a process. It's a journey. It's work. You're not who you were before. And that means things that were in your life before and ways of being that you were used to from before, even though you know. Because every time you do them now, you're like, that doesn't feel good. Like maybe you like to go for a drink to the pub with your friends before, and now you're like, I don't enjoy that. I don't enjoy the music. I don't enjoy the crowds. I don't really drink anymore because as your vibration shifts higher, alcohol treats you way differently. And you're just like, I don't like those things anymore. Well, maybe that's the only thing you ever did with those friends. So maybe those friends will no longer be in your world. Maybe they will. Maybe the relationships will change. But then there's this like grieving of, I liked that experience. And I grieve going to the raves. Sounds hilarious. That was like 20 some odd years ago. But it's like, I loved, and so it's looking at it and be like, I loved going to dance, to have a safe space, to just express myself. Yeah. And how do you bring that sensation? So what is it that you miss about going to the pub, the example, right? Is it hanging out with your friends? And you're like, well, how do I hang out with them now? And also grieving, like I said, the shift in friends and the people, and because even if they're like, yeah, let's go do other things, maybe you'll just notice there's not as much in relation to relate to each other as there was before. Maybe it will surprise you and you're just like, hey, and then they're just like, what? That's amazing. Let's do this thing, right? Or like, I'm interested in that too. Or I actually do those things, but I don't talk about them because I'm afraid of X, Y, and Z. Being vulnerable to that space. And if it's not continuing to be a match, then just saying thank you so much. This time to be with you has been amazing, and letting it go with compassion, but allowing yourself to grieve for these things. Food, where it's like my food list is definitely more shrunk. That is the other being of the household finishing their video, trying to put stuff away. But like my food need list, or like what my body's like, yes, please, to feel good, is smaller. And there are times that I still go, oh, I really wish I could do that. But then realizing that when I do those things, it hurts. Like your physical being will tell you, no, thank you. I am so good without that thing. So give yourself the space to grieve. Give yourself the space to honor what was and welcome what is. Yeah. Okay. It's a big one because, like I said, doing the soul work isn't always ease and bliss and pure light. I mean, there's pure light in it, but it's not. When we hear love and light, we're like, oh, that's so nice. Yeah, sometimes it sucks, but that's what I'm here for. And I feel grateful to be able to be here to help support you through this. Oh, Before I forget, Mercury. Your nervous system will love Mercury. How can you bring Mercury? So Mercury is one of the tuning forks that I use within my practice. I love this fork. It's cool. It's a little cooling, but specific for your nervous system. So how can you bring Mercury in for you? For you. You can bring Mercury in for you. Thinking of Mercury, having pictures of Mercury, calling in Mercury, right? Simple and powerful. Yeah. I think that's it. Okay. Deepest gratitude for you and for this journey. It's not a simple one. You're called to do it. And there was a reason you were called to do it. So keep going. Yeah. Okay. If you need anything, let me know. I'm here. Make sure, if you're watching this video and you made it this far, make sure to follow along. If we're on YouTube, press the share. If you know somebody that could use this, press the follow so you know, subscribe, I guess it is, so you know when the next video comes. If this is on Instagram, make sure to follow along with me. Yeah, and share it too with the people that you think could use it. Okay, let's keep it going. Let's keep that vibration going, that vibration going, and just send that ripple wide. Okay. I'll talk to you soon.